So Jon, welcome. You've been on.
Yeah.
You've been with us a couple of times. You were the Dr. Truth in the industry.
That's what Alex coined, yeah.
Yeah, he coined it, and apparently you said earlier before we went live that you've actually had dealerships call you up and be like, "You're the Dr. Truth."
It's happened.
That's happened. That's crazy because we've done this one time.
Right. It just goes to the weight that DealerRefresh has in the industry, I think.
Well,
the legends, Alex.
Awesome.
Alex, yeah.
Alex is a legend, not me.
I don't know about that. Although speaking of legends, if anyone was on the watching the last show, we were promised an eye patch. We thought we were going to have Pirate Jeff here today. How's the eye, man?
It's not. It's fine. I can see. That's all that matters.
I see you got a fancy earring.
What's that?
That's a fancy earring.
Oh, this? No, you got me onto this.
Oh, that's cute.
I know. God. I've always said I'll never have an ear roach. I do not want an ear roach. But Alex is like, you know what? You need to get these things. What are they called? The ear pods, the AirPods. He's like, these things are amazing. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I go into Best Buy. I had the Beats that would come down so I could work, and they were horrible. It's an 8-hour time, and I was lucky if I got maybe 30 minutes out of them.
Yeah, I could say some really not nice thing about Beats.
Yeah. So,
but
$3 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could say that nice thing about it for sure.
So you convinced me to get the ear roach. Now I've got ear roaches. Not one, but two.
I'd say that's probably one of Apple's best products right there. I don't think people realize how convenient they are, but they just went through some hurdles just trying to get those things to market. But now that they're here, they
I'm impressed.
Good. Yeah.
As you pointed out. Sorry.
You do. Unfortunately, with them, you do look kind of goofy wearing them.
Yeah.
You do. But they do have like these skins that you can put on, but no one has a flesh tone skin.
That might be even weirder.
Yeah, that'd be weird, man. The name itself, I think, would have problems selling.
Now you got a skin roach coming out of your ear. Like a worm.
Just make it obvious.
Cool.
Anyway, so
well, no,
back to attribution.
Yeah.
Not attribution of the AirPods, but
well, it's definitely
on the car.
On DealerRefresh, attribution has been a huge topic of late.
You know what? I sort of blame myself for it.
Not Ed Brooks?
No, I blame myself for it. 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I was working with HookLogic, AutoHook.
Yeah.
And I mentioned attribution at the corporate office. And I said, we need to figure out attribution for the car sale. And I talked about it, I think at Driving Sales at least 1 or 2 times. And so I blame myself for all this attribution bullshit.
You started it.
Oh, it's all your fault.
I didn't start it. Maybe I I don't know.
You deserve 50% of the blame.
I don't want credit for starting this crap, but it's something that I talked about quite a bit. And then from there, because I spoke about it at Driving Sales 1 or 2 times, Digital Dealer, Brian Pash has his thing going on. And I think I spoke at one of those conferences as well in New Jersey. And the whole thing was around attribution.
Right.
And, I was like, we need to figure this shit out. And now here I am back at the car dealership, and I'm like, you know what? Screw attribution. Screw it. Like, there's no way to figure it out. 100%. At least I don't think so. Maybe you'll prove us wrong today, John. But I'm just like, just do all the right things and then sell a car.
So you're saying right off the bat that attribution is one of those fancy vendor shiny objects?
So are you guys familiar with the Gartner like hype curve? Have you guys ever seen? Gartner is an institution that puts out information on technology companies and just like industry trends of all technology. And
Gartner, Gartner?
Gartner, Gartner.
And that's their website, or you just Google it?
It's a company, yeah. And then they have a website, yeah.
Okay.
And so they have a hype curve.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so basically when a new innovation comes out, there's all the buzz and hype, and it creates a bunch of awareness, and people then flock to it because it's shiny and it's going to solve all the world's problems.
You mean like artificial intelligence and blockchains?
Yeah, that would absolutely be part of. They have a hype curve for those as well. And so at some point in the hype curve, the reality sets in, and people start. Then the letdown effect, right? And I think we're finally at that point where people have been just kind of overwhelmingly disappointed by, man, I thought this was going to tell me exactly how many cars I sold from A, B, C, D provider. And that just has not happened. So that's
I'm with you. And I'm sorry, I got distracted because Steve Stauning, he says rather than calling you Jon Berna, he would rather call you Don Berna, Don of Data.
Do we have a name for Steve?
Register donofdata.com.
We have a lot of names for Steve.
Steve put out.
Speaking of Steve, I've got a. Let me see if I can get that somewhere. There's
you got
the sandwich. There you go.
Sandwich.
Yeah.
Mine's at home. It's right beside my bed, so I read it almost every night. I at least get 2 pages, and then I fall asleep. Anyways.
2 pages of Steve is, that'll knock you out.
A good 2 pages of Steve is good enough. Love you, Steve. Sorry, bro.
Yep. Oh, Ed Brooks is here now. Now we can get this party going.
All right, Ed. I'm not reading the comments, so you guys will.
Well, yeah, I guess we have that privilege. I don't know. I think it becomes a distraction. But anyway, so back to the attribution.
Yeah. So I wanted to I'll tell the story. So DrivenData worked on attribution a lot in 2017.
Yeah, you and I had a lot of conversations about it back then. Yeah,
so we made the decision to dive way into it early 2017 after a funding raise. And we thought we had a really unique offering because we have a universal architecture with all CRM, DMS, inventory, web data. We have everything in one warehouse in a cloud-based environment on Microsoft.
An amazing dashboard. With a dashboard, you can see all this shit.
So because we had all the transactional data, all the CRM data, all the leads, the appointments, the web traffic, everything, we're like, all right, why not solve for attribution? Because we already have all the first-party data. We can connect the dots and provide the entire spectrum of what happened. And so really, I went on a journey of discovery, trying to absolutely deliver an attribution product for dealers. And we spent 4 or 5 months on it. Really, really dove in. And
that's a lot of time and a lot of money.
For software development, 4 months is a lot of time. And so what we learned is fundamentally to understand attribution, you have to understand identity resolution. So attribution is predictive modeling. It's making value of data, right? But behind that is identity resolution. Within identity resolution, you have 2 categories or 2 types. You have what's called deterministic and probabilistic. So within deterministic means that it's a known entity that we can assign this piece of PII or this customer is linked to this session or this, impression or whatever, right? Whatever you're linking it to.
John, say that again. Deterministic and
probabilistic.
Are these your own terms, or is this
no? This is within the companies that do identity resolution. This is the two ways.
I mean, you're speaking.
Yeah.
This is
the reason we call him Dr. Truth.
Yeah, I mean, I want to bring this stuff up because now that it's all kind of blown up in the last couple months, I think I have no reason to not tell everybody how this thing works because it's all going to change anyways. And so anyways, back to deterministic and probabilistic. Within deterministic, there's only a couple companies in the world that can really give you that. And we use a company that is very large called Axiom. A subsidiary is called LiveRamp, and they do data onboarding. And LiveRamp? Yeah, LiveRamp provides deterministic, the deterministic matching, identity resolution. From there, that becomes a data point in a framework that you then build modeling on top of. So when we talk about identity resolution, let's understand the kind of problems with it on the deterministic side first. So if you disable tracking in your browser, right? If you choose do not track, you're not going to have cookie data. Yep. Cookie data is what drives deterministic matching, right? So
okay. Yep.
Cookies are only good they have a lifespan. So they're really typically only good for about 90 days, and then they have to re-cookie and remap that human to that device. And so because they have a lifespan, you constantly have to refresh them, and that's what a company like LiveRamp through Axiom does. And so you're essentially subscribing for a service that it gives you that ability. And when we really looked at on the deterministic side only, when we looked at a sold customer, we wanted to figure out of these sold customers who was on the dealership's website. You can then kind of create a match rate. What's the percentage of customers that you can see that they had a browsing session prior to the sale, right? Mm-hmm. And in that example, you're talking anything from 15 to maybe 30% is typically about what you're going to see. And that has trended down over time as people opt into do not track. People are in public domains that it's harder to track them.
Is that more from a mobile side?
Yeah, all sides. I mean,
if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to quote, I won't quote this person, but I know there's a large company out there, there's a large classified site, and at one point a year or two ago, they had almost a 50% attribution through mobile. Mm-hmm. So they knew if that customer was on your facility.
Yeah.
Now, not so great for big groups because it's not accurate enough, but for a smaller dealership or a single point, my goodness. But that's went from 50% down to almost less than 30%.
Yeah. So there's another like fundamental thing that's changed. So Google, well, let's get back to deterministic and probabilistic.
Sorry.
Probabilistic is really using a lot of that data from the deterministic data to then create probabilities as to whether a session can be attributable to a piece of PII. And they use what's called, they'll have like data layers, they'll call them device graphs, human graphs, ID graphs. They got all kinds of cute names for them. There's a lot of probabilistic companies, and there's a lot of people that say, well, we don't use cookie data in our attribution. We don't use cookies. Well, that's because they use statistics. And so who do you trust more, statistics or a cookie? They're both fundamentally challenged.
That's a good question.
So a lot of people,
they taste delicious.
An argument's basically been made that attribution's never really worked because identity resolution has never really worked. And identity resolution has just got a torpedo in May from GDPR. And then recently...
Hold on a second here.
Yeah.
So we're jumping, we've thrown out PII, and now we're throwing out GDPR. So
what's
maybe
GDPR?
We define some of these acronyms.
Yeah, so General Data Protection Regulation in the EU.
So based out of Europe.
Yep. So it was created April 2016, implemented May 25th of this year.
Was that?
Is there more coming from this group?
Well, obviously, so here's, I think after the midterms, we're going to see legislation. I think there's already a couple bills that are in the works, if not already made. The polling on this is really bad. So generally speaking, people in the United States and people in Europe, people in Canada don't want to be tracked. And it doesn't matter what party you subscribe to, nobody wants to be tracked.
I just want Facebook to track me. That's the only one I like.
Oh, they've been great with data. So yeah.
Your voice, everything.
So what's the latest on their stock, guys? I don't know.
Oh, they're up.
Today?
No, I don't know.
No. I don't know today. $171 billion loss.
Ooh, yeah. My favorite part of all of that was Zuckerberg lost $17 billion this week. And so he went from number 4 on Forbes' most wealthy list. Now he's number 6.
Yeah.
After losing all that money.
Yeah, you lose $17 billion and you just lose a slot.
Still skipping to work.
Yeah.
And then Twitter today got pounded by 16%, I think, too. And so with both of those, I think, there's no such thing really as like a market correction, right? But I think what we did have was there was issues within the system that hadn't fully come to surface in both products. So with Twitter, it was fake users, 70 million users they've deleted. What's it called? The Twitter apocalypse. What do they call it? I can't remember.
I don't know, but I believe
they deleted. So most of those were bots. And so that was pumping up their monthly active user count, which was pumping up the stock price. Once you delete those, they miss their MAU. And then, the reckoning, which is today. And then with Facebook, their costs are going up and the revenue is going down. The revenue is going down because partner categories are going away. And I think the novice amateurs on the novice advertisers on Facebook, which is where they make a ton of money from, they're less likely to engage in marketing. And so that's gonna sting them even more in their outlook over the next, people essentially using the Oracle audiences of partner categories. They're going to have difficulty marketing. So
can we take a little step back and maybe summarize what all was just said?
Yeah.
So, and I'll try and translate as best I can. I'm nowhere near on your level, John, but
yeah, you are.
I don't know.
You're modest.
Some of that was definitely over my head. I have to admit. Basically, the Canada, United States, and in Europe, the citizens of these areas have been polled, and they are saying that we really hate being tracked. We don't want all of our personal private information, PII, being known freely by Googles and Facebooks and so on and so forth. And then you pair that with some data breaches that have occurred.
Yep.
Especially, the big one in 2016, some of the election stuff, all that crazy stuff that was going on. And we have fuel for GDPR, which is legislation from Europe that starts to talk about how private information can be used. And we can go back and we can thank some of these bigger organizations like Facebook for giving us some changes to stuff due to some bad practices on their part. Now, you were just about to, or we kind of got a little off topic, but you were mentioning how you think the next election cycle in the United States is going to reinforce this a bit more. And I think that all of this is very important to understand, because this is where we start to see the capabilities of third parties being able to supply us with some of the data elements that we've been enjoying as marketers.
As marketers, yeah.
Yes.
I know I do. I enjoy it. I mean, I hate it. I hate the fact because it's my data and I don't want that shit shared. But at the same time, I'm like, whew, look what I can do with this.
Right.
So go on, boys.
Yeah,
well, you were summarizing it.
Well, I was at the end.
Yeah, I thought there was a question.
On a rant,
caught it up.
Yeah, so what happens next? I mean, I think I think there's a argument for both conservatives and liberals to probably make a case that we want this, and they may even agree on it. Now, no one's doing anything with it yet, so we'll have to see after November. But here's really the fundamental problem. If you're a software company and you're not in the Fortune 50, and you have to now make two versions of your product. If you're essentially leveraging any kind of tracking.
What do you mean two versions?
Well, a version for GDPR entities in the EU and then in the United States. So,
Gotcha.
The cost for this is not so like. We've all had experience with software and developing software, and you're familiar with like software localization, right? Making software work for a specific country or specific area of the country, right? And so the most common thing is like video games and movies, right? Well, they'll change the language or certain parts of it, and they'll optimize that for the market. They have to do the same thing for software, and within software, this is essentially the skeleton of a lot of software companies, right? So you can't have two skeletons. You can really only have one. And so for these companies that are not the huge companies, they can't afford having two versions of their product. That's just really, really challenging. So they're crying and they're saying, look, we want a standard. We'll follow it, but just give us a standard. So those companies are trying to lead, a lot of progress toward establishing a clear standard between everybody.
So basically, in a nutshell, and this in our description of today's show, we said, hey, Americans, get pissed off, because basically what we're saying there is the EU is now dictating how things are done in the United States, at least as far as the internet is concerned. Right?
Right.
So, because the internet's the World Wide Web, it's global. Basically, if any country were to come out and say, this is how it's got to be done now, everybody must comply.
If you're going to do business in that country, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So right now, there's a ton of companies that can't do business in the EU and Europe because they're not compliant. And so there's been all these, initiatives to get compliant. And I mean, people have known about this for a while, so they have time to do it. But the challenge is having two versions of your company. And that's what's crazy right now. And that's what's fundamentally broken. And this is what I think is going to, and it already is, ruining attribution. So Google just recently in July suspended unique identifiers. They stopped passing unique identifiers to marketers. And so that's a huge change. And they've also come out with a new free tool, right, guys?
Yeah. I've been trying to sign up for that thing for DealerRefresh. We wanted to give it a go. I think it was Alexander Lau who pointed it out the other day. And I've applied for it twice now, and you get no response whatsoever from Google. Typical.
So the question is, why did they give it for free, right?
Well, is it really there for free if they're not giving it away yet? So
I think I have a suspicion why. So if I'm Google, I want to control the narrative. And if we're essentially the oracle on attribution, then, and you have no other place to get it, then we can kind of paint our products with a certain brush, right? And no one's saying that they're going to absolutely manipulate the numbers, but they are going to absolutely have some bias baked into the reporting, because that's just inherent in any self-reporting system. There will be bias. But really, it's about controlling the narrative, and it's about beating Facebook. So Google's ad spend or ad revenue over the last few years has fallen from, I think, 39 to 36, 35%. Facebook has now grown to 16, 17%. And Amazon is also behind Facebook and slowly increasing. So if you're Google, you want to get back to 40%. And this is a way that they can show how their product suite performs. to encourage marketers to stay in that ecosystem, and making it captive, in their case, is a very protectionist way of doing business.
Yeah. So we've got some good comments coming in on Facebook, including one from Ed Brooks, who's been a huge stir of the attribution thread we've had on in the forums. But he does say, again, to echo what you were just saying, that Google's product might be free, but it's obviously going to be slanted towards Google. So
Yeah,
Google bias on that. However, now I have to apologize in advance because I'm probably going to butcher your name, but Peter.
Just say Peter.
Yeah. All right, Peter, you're just Peter Q now, buddy.
Oh, that's Peter. That's Peter Quinones. He's
yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah. But he's been saying a lot of good things in the comments, and keep it up because he's definitely adding some color to the conversation.
What, like, I'm not reading him. What's one of
So let's see. He's got a long one here. It says there will be a surge in algorithmic hashing of all PII, and data management across data warehouses will be more important than ever. We are past the point of privacy. It's going to be a game of hashing data and matching it anonymously. The politicians will take way too long to get there and understand what's happening here.
So let's talk about what hashing is.
Wow.
So hashing is a programmatic way to take PII, essentially personally identifiable information, customers' information, and match that with a browsing session. But do it in between. You create a gap between them. The hashing there's a link, but it's not something that somebody else could then go back and take advantage of. So part of the rules with anyone like LiveRamp or any of these kind of deterministic partners, this part of they go through a legal review with you, and you have to prove in your system that no one person has access to the PII data and their device IDs or graph. In their case, they call it a LiveRamp ID or a ramp ID. I can't remember exactly. So the unique identifiers that are associated with a person and their browsing session have to be anonymized. And hashing is essentially just a programmatic way to break that link through a code essentially. And so yes, he's right, but remember, to hash values, you also have to have the deterministic data to match it to. So if you don't have that data, then what are we matching it against? There's no more. It breaks the link basically.
Yeah. But I'm
responding. That's
responding here.
That's your response. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to.
My response is we're all freaking screwed as marketers.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's just well, you know what? I was going to respond to Steve's question of, so does attribution modeling provide any value to dealers, and how? Steve,
if you want to jump on, bro.
Yeah, if you're going to be here, man.
But yeah, he's got a standing invitation at all times. But so it's a good segue here because, attribution modeling obviously isn't dead, but it's going to get cut down to really just your own world, the things that are in your control.
So yeah, if you built your attribution product or offering anytime before May of this year, you're rebuilding it right now. And July just made it harder. So again, there's a kind of a shift. We're in a state of flux, and the shift is between what are called DMPs or data management platforms and what are called CDPs, consumer data platforms or customer data platforms. So DMPs are what advertisers, marketers use to create audiences off of cookie data primarily, as well as other sets of data to manage programmatic advertising, paid search advertising, everything, right? And so this is what agencies, that if you're a dealership and you're going to an agency, a full service agency of size, they absolutely have a DMP. They absolutely use that to manage the ad buys that they make, the media buys. And so those are basically reliant on cookies. Cookies are basically becoming dead. So therefore DMPs are kind of becoming, and so cookies have driven this processing for 22 years.
Yeah.
So it's a huge shift. And now customer data platforms are fundamentally different. They're basically CRMs on steroids. They're CRMs that were built, and they're all basically come out in the last 14 months to 2 years. And they're all reliant on first-party known data. First-party data drives the process, and you create audiences and create modeling off of that. And that is absolutely the hottest segue for marketers to go to, because with first-party data, guess what? The attribution modeling is one-to-one. Everything's deterministic, and you absolutely have a path to build loyalty and drive successful campaigns.
Define successful campaigns.
Campaigns that sell cars.
Well, I know that, but duh. But
yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying. Just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, I think one of the problems with attribution historically is that we've lost our love for creating a great message and a great unique selling proposition. We've over-focused on the analytics. The analytics haven't delivered, and so we've been left with a bad message and no reporting. And so I see a lot of dealerships in our demos and conversations, the best and brightest that we talk to are really trying like hell to make attribution work or ask questions about it. And then you sometimes see situations where they've really sacrificed on building a brand and a message that truly is unique. And if we focused more on that, I think we would have had more success sometimes.
So what makes a dealership, I mean, how does a dealership really truly make a unique message?
Alex, you want to try that one?
Well, He's been there, done that.
Well, checkered flag. I mean, you guys created messaging.
Good call out. I like that.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that it really is the same old formula, just a different day, in my opinion. And I'll stand by my statement that I've been making to Ed for a little while here, that I do believe that attribution is dead. I think it's not something that's that important for a dealer to really focus on, with the exception of what's going on in the world you control. So if you can watch what's happening on your website, it's sort of like, monitoring your health almost. It's worth doing and seeing what people are doing as they migrate through your property, your website. I know I'm getting a little repetitive there, but if you, going back to what I was saying about this being a, same old song and dance, let's get back to basics. Really, it's all about the content and making sure that you are differentiated against your competition. Getting lost in all this technicality of attribution is probably not the best way to sell cars.
So I'll bring in a couple of points, right? So I see people with, $1 creative and $30 campaigns, basically, right? Where we'll see the ad copy, the visuals, the graphic design, the lack of video production as part of their monthly strategy that's in-house or where their agency comes on site.
That's the $1 creative.
That's, well, right now.
From the OEM.
Yeah, right. So it's just, or it's, cookie cutter and it's just made off site. It's, rolling footage. Yeah. To me, the dealerships that are winning, that are successful, are building a message that is on their people. It's real humans, it's real cars, it's real experiences, and they're magnifying that. And if I have that message and it's probably going to be 2 to 3 times as good as the next dealer, I need to spend a third or half as much money to make that message go further. And so I think if you invest on the front side of marketing, it's like you pay for it either way. Either you pay for it in the production side, right? Or you pay for it in poor results after the fact. And to me, it's like paying on the production side guarantees better results, I feel. And it's cheaper to invest there than to have, you know, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in ad spend that is just, you know, has bad performance. Yeah. So we see that all the time, and a good message goes so much further than a bad message, basically. And so that's one point.
Well, define a bad message. You're saying
I'm not as good as a good message, basically. But I mean, I would also bring up another really important point. If you're creative and your monthly campaigns aren't built the month before you're delivering them, then what are you doing? Like, that to me is the most fundamental thing to control in marketing, is building process. Each month you should be executing the current month and building the campaigns for the next month and tuning them so that when the month is ended, there's no more question as to what you're going to do next month. You've already decided it and you're executing that strategy.
Yeah, but if your message is great service, this is what we do, why do you need to change it every month?
Because it needs to stay fresh. And there's what's called ad numbness, right? Ad blindness even. And so there's, you know, and we see this in Facebook's results, right? So when you're scrolling through and you see the same ad 2 or more times, so the first time
I hit the freaking don't give it to me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, undeliver this shit to me. Like, I don't want to see this anymore. Like,
so the difference between the first impression and the second impression in CTR is a 40% reduction. So frequencies of 2, basically you've seen the ad twice, CTR drops 40%.
Wow.
And that's because people get numb to ads. And that's just 2 times. Think about it 8 times, how bad that trails off. That's a perfect way to measure the real effect of using the same ad over and over and over. People just lose focus. There's too much noise in the world and not enough signal. And so if you're a dealer, you want to create signal, not noise.
Oh, that's a great statement.
Oh, I think we're going to quote that one. Dr. Truth says. I love it.
So, John, there's a question from Rick Buffkin.
Yep.
And he's
love Rick.
Yep. So he's moving on from cookies, and he wants to know if there's a future for tracking pixels.
It's essentially the same thing. I mean, again, a lot of the pixel tracking is through either their own platforms and through, so like in the example of Google, if you lose the device ID and you're not passing that along anymore, you can't associate that with the pixel, and the same problem. It's the same. There's no difference between the two. It's just another way. It's just another way to deploy the cookie, basically.
All right. So if we might have already hit on this a little bit, but I think it's okay to repeat it somewhat and maybe get our statement a little clearer, because I'm not sure I was very clear in my little monologue a minute ago. Mm-hmm. But so if we're all in agreement that third-party data attribution is destined to die, then
attribution,
yes, being able for, let's say, Facebook being able to give you information about things that are interacting with your business, let's say, or being very deep with that information. It's going to be anonymized, it's going to be whatever, but it won't be the same as what we've enjoyed. So we should we be working with our website providers to maybe get more information exposed there on that side?
Ooh.
When you say more information exposed on that side, do you mean?
Well, a lot of website providers, and it might not totally be their fault, but they have some very generic reports.
No.
And so, like, you have IPs coming in, and there's click trails and things like that, and a lot of the chat companies do show some click trail information. Active Engage, who we had on last week, does that. And there usually isn't a place to dump that. So like if you're using Active Engage and looking at the click trail, you can go into their product and check it out. But that click trail information rarely makes it into a CRM system in any kind of decipherable way.
Right.
So, you've got to be able to read the, the technical aspects of it in order to understand it.
Yeah, but so a dealership has that data. What are they going to do with it?
Well, if there is
I use Auto Lead Star. Great company. They give me all the click trail data all the way down. But what do I do with it at the end of the day?
Analyze it.
Lots of things.
I mean, I don't know.
I try to. Don't get me wrong. I try to. I train my salespeople on how to have a conversation because of that data. But still.
Well, is it your salespeople who need to have that? Other than, the best thing for the salespeople in the click trail information is other vehicles that customer would have landed on or looked at.
Yeah.
Or the customer's engagement.
That's what I train on.
Or the customer's engagement. If they come back to the site 30 times and they've been all over it, and I'm calling that customer as a salesperson, I have so much more confidence that this is a real opportunity I'm going to sell them. And I think what we need to do in our software, in just CRM and everybody, is what do we do to motivate these salespeople to feel like this customer is ready to rock? And I think the ClickTail definitely, we use HubSpot here at Driven Data. HubSpot has some really amazing tools. I think you guys are probably pretty familiar with their product. And it really gives you the ability, when we talk to a prospective customer for Driven Data, we've seen their interaction. And so when somebody re-engages with us by going on our site or by engaging with one of our, pieces of content or email, we see that, and it gives us the confidence to pick up the phone or send that next email. And if you're a salesperson, sometimes it's really disheartening, and making 100 calls a day is not the future. It's making the right 20 calls, 30 calls, and having has some weight behind them. So if I'm Alex and I'm, I know what I know about CRM design and that whole process, I'm thinking, and how do I motivate salespeople with ClickTail? That's what I would do.
So do you recall lead scoring?
Yes.
Polk. I work with Polk for quite a few years around the whole lead scoring piece.
Yep.
Whew. And there were a lot of things. There are a lot of great things that came out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize a lot of different things when it came to a lead. And they had their own scoring because it was called lead scoring. So basically, a lead would come through the CRM. Actually, it would go through Polk lead scoring first, and then it would come into a CRM.
Right.
And it would come through with a score. And the score was from 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
10 was, they would use all their data, Polk would, and decide whether or not this customer was a valid customer to purchase this particular vehicle. The problem was dealerships never look at that freaking data.
Yeah, or they'll prejudge it and ignore leads that have a score under a certain amount.
Here's the big part. You have a customer that comes in with a lead score of 2 and they buy a car.
Yeah.
So, and now it's all screwed up.
Yeah.
Now it's all screwed up.
That's been, I think, one of the fundamental problems with lead scoring is prejudging. And so if I'm a salesperson that's cherry picking 8s, 9s, and 10s, because why waste my time on the 1s through 7s? And so that's because they're over trusting in the result. It's not, going to correlate 100% in all cases for your store. Polk is just saying, based on their data, there's a statistical model that proves the significance of their previous behavior related to their future behavior. And they can do that because they have the ability to but again, a lot of that is also based on cookie data. A lot of that's based on identity resolution. So,
well, I remember introducing Polk to Datium.
Yeah.
Remember Datium back in the day?
That's one that hasn't come up in a while.
Acquired by who?
That's an old name, right?
Somebody acquired Dadium, right?
Dadium.
Yeah.
Who was
acquired?
that? Was that John Ezos? Oh, shame on me for not remembering.
Maybe somebody will mention it in the comments.
Yeah, but this is essentially the same fundamental. Dadium is basically doing the exact same fundamental thing, using cookie data, using deterministic and probabilistic data to map a user or person over multiple browsing sessions on many sites, whether it be autotradercars.com or whatever. It's the same fundamental technology.
So, we touch on the CRM. We said CRM a few times in this conversation, or at least over the last 45 minutes. And Kate Barnett.
Sorry, Alex, but the big news, right? CDK buys eLead CRM.
Yeah, that's the big news.
What's that going to be? Let's not go down that path. I just wanted to bring it up. That's huge. Continue on. My apologies.
Congrats to the eLeads crew.
To the big people.
Should we also say congrats to Dealer On?
They're Hugh and Bill and
the only sort of smaller private entity left.
Yep.
Of scale. Yeah.
It's time for innovation, gentlemen.
Oh, and Peter's got us. Dadium was bought by IHS.
Thank you.
Which was part of Polk. So IHS bought Polk and Dadium.
Right. And Automotive Masterminds.
So
that's right. I forgot about that.
It all makes sense now, boys.
That company was exploding. I feel bad for a lot of the sales reps that worked for them because they went from making great money to being completely unemployed. Like that.
That's unfortunately the reality of some of these acquisitions.
I know. It still sucks.
Sorry, mergers.
Sorry. Yeah. In our industry, mergers.
We'll merge you out.
Mergers and acquisitions and
oh boy.
Just be prepared. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. So anyway, back to CRMs for a minute. So Kate Barnett was asking.
Love Kate. Kate was my rep. She was my rep with Dominion.
Well, hey, Kate. So yes, Kate was asking if the CRM is the right place for this information to live in.
No.
And some of it, because it's the only tool that certain individuals in the dealership are interfacing with. So how else are you going to get information in front of them?
So CRMs are not built for marketers. They have not been, and there's no CRM really in existence that's really been designed for marketers. That's what a CDP is. So a CDP is basically a customer data platform that allows marketers to manage these audiences and the known records and distribute them into campaigns, and then to track the success of those campaigns with known entities. And so we're not the only industry that has CRM, right? CRM's been around forever. CRM was never designed to expose customer data to marketing channels and platforms. And so also a lot of the CRMs in our industry, as Alex knows better than anybody, were designed a long time ago, with the exception of a few, right, that are more recent.
What are the recent ones?
DriveCentric's pretty recent.
Oh, yeah.
And shout out, they're here in Indianapolis, so I have to give them a little bit of love. Yeah.
Good people.
Steve's a good sales guy. Reach out to Steve.
Steve,
but anyways,
extremely good sales guy.
Yeah. So the really a CRM's job is to manage, obviously, consumer engagement, activity, the task-based management of your customer base. A CDP is to take that customer data and then deploy that in campaigns. And so they're two totally different use cases, and you can't design from a software perspective one tool that does both, because they're fundamentally built differently. They interact with each other. They need to interact with each other, and the CDP needs the CRM, and the CRM.
Yeah, but that doesn't exist.
Yeah, we're kind of splitting hairs in the car business right now, though.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Right.
What's a dealership to do nowadays?
Well, that's assuming you want to go after all this data.
Well, I would.
So if we're collecting this data from first party sources now, right? What is the dealer's first party source?
So this is transactional data from the DMS, and it's the lead data in the CRM.
Yeah.
That's the three sources. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. So doesn't it kind of make sense that those are the vendors we should be looking toward to say, look, I'm losing some of this attribution from other areas, and I'd like to continue with it or make it stronger here.
You could, and in the future, they probably will coalesce into a tool, probably 5 to 10 years from now. But remember, what's a product life cycle? 7 years? That's typically right.
Unless you're a DMS.
I was going to say in our industry,
right.
30 years.
But that's but typically it's 7 years, and in slower industries it can be longer. So, if it was made 10 years ago in some of these cases, right? How do you redesign what you built that long ago? It's a fundamentally different application. And so, that's where innovation is going to hit, and that's where dealers are going to now be able to take advantage of their own assets. And think about it from a dealership's perspective. Let's kind of bring this back to them. Every month, if you spend $50,000 to $100,000 in marketing, right? What is this data worth over 10 years? $6, $7, $8 million is what you spent for it, and you're not deploying it. Like, that's the justification, is to focus on what you own, these huge assets that you spent all this money to earn. Deploy it.
All right.
Yeah. Whew.
So going back on a question Steve Stauning had earlier, how can a dealer make money on attribution? Have we answered that?
I think we've wasted money, right?
Whew.
No doubt.
I did, right? We did. We wasted money on it. So,
but has a dealership wasted money?
Well, I think just in like mental capacity, right? Like, so if you're focused on solving, so does anybody remember the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
And
Russell Crowe.
There's a scene with Russell Crowe, I think in his garage, and he's got wire or yarn from magazine to magazine. He's trying to crack the Russian code or something like that.
That's not Russell Crowe.
Yeah, it's Russell Crowe. 100%.
Okay. Anyways. Sorry.
Alex is correct. Anyways, the scene from that movie is, a lot of internet directors, e-commerce directors, BDC managers, that's what their offices look like to try to figure this thing out. And for what? That's what my office looked like trying to figure this out. So that's where I think we wasted the money right there. It was just some mental energy. And if we, again, focus back on having my message ready before the month, focusing on first party data, having a message that's created in-house or with partners that want to create a really fantastic message that's unique for me, I think if we put that much effort into those things, we would have been more successful. Make an argument against it,
I don't think there's an argue. I mean, how can you argue that?
No, you can't.
Other than I do want to say, I was thinking of The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Where he
did eventually solve it.
The other doctor,
yeah,
Strange.
Sorry. Yep.
Yep.
Just trying to bring it back.
Yeah, and so it will adapt, right? There will be a new version of attribution, absolutely. But it's going to be fundamentally using different, methods and technology. And
so up to this point, what does a dealership do? We have so much technology at our hands. They can be using your technology. I know, who is it? Car Story. We use Fast. I use their app quite often. They've got a trade-in app.
Shout out to Ryan Leslie.
Mhm.
Shout out to Ryan. Love Ryan, of course.
All the crew over there.
Yeah, everyone over there. And I use that. I use it because I'm at the dealership, and I use it to evaluate the dealership. So there's so much technology out there. So what's right and what's wrong?
So I think the first kind of goal is let's create an experience for a customer through their journey with deciding to choose our dealership. Let's measure the engagement with that content throughout their experience. And this is actually a point that I think Peter may be making in the comments, has definitely talked to me about previously. Creating experiences for customers that are digital and traditional, and the technology that supports that on those platforms, I think is important. And whether that be Facebook or Twitter, or whether that be through LinkedIn. I know Paul Potratz and his team are doing a lot of really creative content on LinkedIn, managing audiences through LinkedIn. That's kind of a cool way to sell, I would say more expensive products, even some B2B stuff. That's, to me, that's being creative. That's deploying your message into these technologies in a way that other dealerships, traditionally haven't.
But you're talking about reputation management.
No, I'm talking about audience management. I'm talking about taking either your data or lookalike data from your data and deploying that and tracking that across a more diverse spectrum of mediums.
I sat down with Chip, which was the owner of DealerRater. I'm sure everyone on this call knows who DealerRater is. We probably use them. Cars.com just acquired them not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. They're a DealerRefresh sponsor.
Ryan Leslie was a big proponent of DealerRater, and I remember sitting down having a dinner with Chip. And this probably, again, my memory only sucks. I don't know. It was 7 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. All I know is DealerRefresh turns 15 in 2019, right, Alex?
Yep.
So we turned 15 years. So we've been around for 14 years. So that's like I measure things based on my children's birth and when DealerRefresh started. So I remember sitting down with Chip long before the acquisition with Cars.com. Again, this was probably 12. I think Matthew, what was his name? Matt.
Oh, I always think of him as the Blue Hole Jamaica guy.
Yes, Blue Hole Jamaica guy. Matthew was their main. He was their first. I think he was their first actual employee, if I'm not mistaken.
But is there a point here, Jeff?
What's that? Yeah,
where are you going?
I'll get to the point. Sorry. I remember sitting down and having a dinner with Chip, and I said to him, every review you have, because at that point they had 1,200 reviews, and now they're probably up to 22 million reviews. I was like, every review that you have is worth its weight in gold. And
how much is a review?
And he looked at me over a nice ribeye steak, and he's like, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you have no idea what you're building here. He eventually figured it out, obviously, because he's, he has too much money to even freaking listen to to Refresh Friday.
Yeah, where is the Gruder?
We're Chip Gruder. Shout out. Exactly.
And then we got another last name from the audience. It's Matt Lamoro.
Yes, Matt Lamoro. Yeah, good
Blue
guy.
Hole.
I only saw it was Lamarax. You know my pronunciation, so.
So what you're talking about is leveraging
the reviews,
a lot of data, right?
Yeah.
And deploying it in machine learning, right? So, and we do this today, right? So we use Python and R, and we, predict who's in market, and we forecast dealership sales. And the ability to do that is just based on having a ton of data. The more data you have, the easier it is to make those valuable assets. And so that's what Automotive Mastermind has done. That's what other products have done. To your point, on reviews, that's what I would do with it. Because that's how you can create value for a dealer, and allow them to magnify the strength of their own audience or their own customer data in this case.
Well, guys, we're running up on actually gone past the 2:00 hour.
I know, but this has been so much great information.
Well, John, can you keep hanging?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. We've got, look, even Jon Berna joined the Facebook.
We'll have to I
can see the comments. I want to see the comments on my phone.
And now, look, somebody who we don't hear from enough, the pre-cup himself, has just shown up.
Who's that?
Stefan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. For real?
Yeah.
Dude, I invited Stefan on a Refresh Friday, and he's just, I guess he's just too shy. He doesn't, I'm like, dude, you have what a smart guy. One of the original dealer refreshers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the very beginning, he was one of the first ones just commenting and just like figuring stuff out. Yeah, would love to, but I've asked him, I was like, let's get on board. He won't do it. Too shy, too smart and too shy.
Yeah, that's a common trait, right? So it's the introverts that you got to watch.
Well, I'm an introvert myself, but
it's funny. Absolutely. I think there's 3 of us here right now.
We're all 3 introverts, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of me telling this story was just to help other people that to share this and I absolutely am an introvert, to tell this story. To me, I wanted other people to understand really the journey that Driven Data took in trying to figure that out, so that they actually know the reality of like what's going on in this. And I think back to the kind of Gartner hype curve that we started with, there's been a lot of that, and it sounds magical and it sounds like it's great. But really, it comes back to the fundamental best practices, I think, that we've, that Alex kind of pointed out and we've been talking about. It's just getting back to that.
Yeah, the car business is not rocket science. That's for sure. So.
Well, you know what? It is, but it isn't.
How many PhDs are in the car business? And I'm not talking about Papa Has dealerships.
All right. No answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it does take a unique individual to sit behind the desk at a car dealership and be a BDC / marketer / salesperson / vehicle acquisition, like
right. Multi-disciplines, right?
Yeah,
so
you have to have a lot of hats that you typically have to wear in this industry, and that's not easy.
You also have to justify your own job, right? And so most of the other positions in the dealership, you don't have to justify your existence.
No, just make a commission.
We all kind of came from that role, and I can tell you that sometimes you're in the hot seat when you shouldn't be, right? And so I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for those roles, especially given how challenging it is with the distractions that occur. And how do you manage your prioritization of tasks and where you can add the most value and sell the most cars? And sometimes it's today, and sometimes it's investments that you're making that you won't even see for 6 months. And really in the dealership, that like long-term investment mindset
that doesn't exist.
No, they're like typically one of the few employees that really, really is building for the future every day, and it won't translate into sales today. And so that truly is a like you said, they might as well have PhDs because they certainly have earned them with the stress of the position.
So
No,
PhD of fire.
No, that's a valid point. We've got a salesperson here at my dealership. I helped hire him 13 years ago, Barry, and he was the Novus windshield guy. So he would go out there and fix the windshields. And if you had a stone chip or something like that in your front windshield, he would fix. He had some type of chemical and solution that he was able to fix it with. And I remember when I was selling Volkswagens at the Sheraton dealership, and we would have a good conversation. So when he applied here at the Mercedes-Benz dealership, I'm like, here's a guy that I know. He's not going to be your rock star in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be that guy. But if you allow him to mature and do the things just like what you're saying, John, he will eventually be the rock star. Guess what?
He's not fixing glass anymore?
Well, totally not. he sells 20 to 30 Mercedes-Benz a month. Yeah.
Wow. And that's impressive. That's not common in luxury brands. That's really,
it's
really
not.
impressive.
No.
And especially in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah, right down from Denny's.
My Denny's. My favorite restaurant on earth.
Ever since coming to my town.
Trust me, folks, you don't go there for the food. You go there for the Jerry Springer show going on in every booth. Yeah.
Thanks.
Only at Jeff's. So should we end it there, fellas?
I think we should. It's 2:07. It's 7 minutes past the hour, and we could probably go on for 2 more hours, but we'll make another.
So to summarize,
we don't want to keep John from producing new products and innovation.
No, he needs to go check the new attribution models and see if they work.
That's what we're doing.
You got another 6 figures to throw at that one, John?
Well, yeah. Let's see. I mean, that's kind of the plan.
I'm kidding, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Not me personally, no.
All right, so let's bring it to an end. Make sure, Alex, advertiser, Podium.
Yes, they are an advertiser or a sponsor, actually. Yes. Now they've got a new product out that's worth checking. So, so Podium isn't just in the reputation management business anymore. They're now in the communications business. So, they have a texting product. It's worth taking a look at. And as Matt Murray was telling it to me, so if I butcher this, it's all on Matt. Basically, there's a lot of, if you have a button on your website that's like text us, many of those go to an automated system or some sort of, what's the word for it? It's
managed service.
Managed service.
Yeah.
Yes, I should have known.
It's not at the dealership.
No. It's not a dealership.
Which sometimes can be better. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Potentially. But if you have a staff that is capable of handling them, the Podium products probably could be a better way to go,
True.
according to Matt. Basically, a text message can come in, and then somebody can take a look at it before assigning it to somebody, or there might be a round robin or something there. And that way the text is getting answered by the most appropriate person in the dealership.
Do you answer your text messages all the time?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I ignore the hell out of yours.
I know you do. You ignore me. Thanks. If I don't text you on Slack, I'm done. It's not going
to You need to manage chat provider.
I need a managed chat platform
for your text.
Alex does just for me. So
yeah.
John, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks guys for having me.
Sorry for taking so long, but so much great information. We'll probably have you back here within the next month and a half, and we'll
at least quarterly.
We'll go down
You
the
can
rabbit
commit
hole.
to that, John.
Yeah. The rabbit hole is scary. Sorry.
Yeah, especially right now.
The future is in flux, and that's a great time for smart people and innovators to build the tools that can help sell more cars. And I think the dealerships that are focusing on loyalty, they're going to have a tailwind going into their months, and they're going to win, and they're going to make more money per car. And that's really where, and this is not new. I mean, we've been building databases for years. Let's just leverage them a little bit more, But thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Before you, do you listen to Peter Schiff?
No.
Okay. All right. We won't go any further with it. Check out Peter Schiff. He's got some great things to say around economics and money and all that good stuff. So, all right, we'll be here next Friday, same time.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
See you later.